Hello, my lovelies. Today I have another book haul for you, so stay tuned. So today I have 28 books to haul for you. Most of them have come from Barnes & Noble. However, I think I've got one that came from a trip, one that came from Books of the Month, and 6 that came from a giveaway. So of these 28, only 22 are actually for me. The 6 that came from a giveaway, they are actually for my little free library. So let's start with those before we get into my fun ones. So these are all like children's books. I can't remember. I think it was Penguin, maybe? No, it was Simon & Schuster. They sent these. So we have Sejal and Sinha, Battle Superstorms by Maya Prasad. This says, Sejal Sinha is serious about science. She knows for a fact that cardboard boxes have a lot of magic that can help take you anywhere, like the moon, even though her family, including her older cousin Mira, doesn't quite understand. When a big storm threatens to ruin the family's Diwali celebration, Sejal knows it's her chance to go on an adventure and prove to everyone how magical science really can be. With the help of Sejal's trusted sidekick, Professor Cheetah, can she and Mira battle the superstorm in time to make this year's Diwali the best one yet? And then we have Once Upon a Tim by Stuart Gibbs. And this one says, Once upon a time, there was a peasant named Tim. Yes, you heard that right. This is the story of a boy who wanted more out of life than to grow up to be a peasant like his parents, and all his other ancestors as well. Even if that means making a treacherous journey filled with dangerous beasts, angry ogres, and very devious humans. Until now, the only path to success in the kingdom of Wild was to be born a prince. But there's never been a hero like Tim before. And then we have Ada Lace, Take Me to Your Leader by Emily Calandrelli. And this one says, third grader and inventor extraordinaire Ada Lace likes nothing more than to tinker with mechanics like her robot George. Her latest project is to fix up a ham radio, something that she could use to contact people on this planet and beyond. The only problem is that she just can't get it to work properly. During a sleepover, Ada's best friend Nina hears something strange coming from the radio in the middle of the night. A distant voice says, "Release the swarm," convincing Nina that aliens are about to invade planet Earth. Could Ada and Nina have stumbled upon something extraterrestrial? Then we have Astrid the Astronaut by Rai Neal. Meet Astrid. She cannot wait to be the first astronaut with hearing aids, and she has the perfect astronomically grand plan to make sure she does just that. The first part of the plan is to join the space club at school, Shooting Stars, with her best friend Haley and go to space camp together. But Astrid's plan isn't off to a great start. It turns out Haley wants to join the art club, Petite Picassos, and draw stars rather than study them. And Astrid is worried things just won't be the same without her BFF by her side. With the help of some new friends, can Astrid complete her big mission in Shooting Stars and be one step closer to an out-of-this-world adventure? Then we have Isla of Adventure, Welcome to the Island, by Della Costa. And let's see, a little hardback one. Oh. This says, join the ever-curious Isla Verde as she adventures through her home island of Sol, where she can speak to animals and they can speak back. But when new girl Tora moves in next door, Isla finds it pretty tricky to hide her big secret. Then the last of these is Angelina Ballerina, Best Big Sister Ever. And this is by Catherine Hollibird. And this one's another little hardback. This says, Angelina's little sister Polly is starting school for the first time, and she feels very shy. Angelina finds a way to help Polly make friends, and she thinks up a wonderful ballet surprise to welcome Polly and all the little mouselings to Chipping Cheddar Elementary. She is the best big sister ever. So these are all for my little free library. Okay, this next one was one that I got. I think it was when Marty and I went on a Canadian cruise, and I totally forgot to haul it like way back. And that is this beautiful edition. It's the collector's edition of Scythe by Neil Schusterman. I love it. Look at this. It's got the commandments, like the Scythe commandments here. I love that. The scythe arrived late on a cold November afternoon. And I just thought this... Wait, no. This is a UK edition. So I don't know if this came from Canada. I can't remember which trip we were on when I got this. But I was just like, I need to get this. I love the Scythe series. It is so freaking good. In this world, death is no longer a common thing. You pretty much can live forever unless you're chosen to be scythed. And there's no like getting old. Whenever you reach a certain age or any age you want, you can reset to back to like 21 or 20 or something like that. There's no illness, none of that. So because of that, the overpopulation does tend to be a problem. So there are scythes that make up for that and eliminate certain people. And once they've been scythed, that is the end of them. And there's a little bit of a competition in the first one with two people who really don't want to be scythes, but they're kind of being put forth that they have to compete, and one of them must become a scythe and the other has to kill the other. It's such an excellent series. Okay, next up is my book from Book of the Month. That is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This one says, when a famous podcaster interviews a stranger promising to divulge the story of a lifetime, secrets emerge that threaten to expose the truth of the lies they've both worked hard to project and protect. Celebrating her 45th birthday at the hot new local pub, popular podcaster Alex Summer crosses paths with an unassuming woman called Josie Fair. Josie, it turns out, is also celebrating her 45th birthday. They are, in fact, birthday twins. A few days later, Alex and Josie bump into each other again, this time outside Alex's children's school. Josie's been listening to Alex's podcast and thinks she might be an interesting subject for her series. She is, she tells Alex, on the cusp of great changes in her life. Josie's life appears to be strange and complicated, and although Alex finds her unsettling, she can't quite resist the temptation to keep going on the project. Slowly, she starts to realize that Josie's hiding some very dark secrets, and before she knows it, Josie has inveigled her way into Alex's life and into her home. But as quickly as she had arrived, Josie Fair disappears. Only then does Alex discover that Josie has left a terrible and terrifying legacy in her wake, and that Alex has become the subject of her own true crime podcast, with her life and her family's lives in grave danger. Best-selling author Lisa Jewell delivers the book of her career in this absolute show-stopping work of She Said, She Said, where two women collide on their birthday night, forcing an unforgettable reckoning between two women with huge but very different ambitions for their lives. All right. Okay, so the rest of these books are all ones that I pre-ordered from Barnes & Noble in no particular order. All right, the first one here is the paperback Barnes & Noble exclusive edition of Eragon by Christopher Paolini. And it has these beautiful blue sprayed edges. This says, Ride the Dragon, Inherit the Legend. When Eragon finds a polished blue stone in the forest, he thinks it is the lucky discovery of a poor farm boy. Perhaps it will buy his family meat for the winter. But when the stone brings a dragon hatchling, Eragon soon realizes he has stumbled upon a legacy nearly as old as the Empire itself. Overnight, he is thrust into a perilous new world of destiny, magic, and power, with only an ancient sword and the advice of an old storyteller for guidance. Aragon and the fledgling dragon must navigate the dangerous terrain and dark enemies of an empire ruled by a king whose evil knows no bounds. Can Aragon take up the mantle of the legendary dragon riders? The fate of the empire may rest in his hands. Let me move these down so I can set this back up here. Apparently this one has a Murtaugh sneak peek inside. Next up is Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. And we have this beautiful map inside. Looks like this. This says, Tana Fairchild's fate has never been in question. Her life has been planned out since the moment she was born. She is to marry the governor's son, Landon, and secure an unprecedented alliance between the witches of her island home and the mainlanders who see her very existence as a threat. Tana's coven has appeased those who fear their power for years by releasing most of their magic into the ocean during the full moon. But when Tana misses the midnight ritual, a fatal mistake, there is no one she can turn to for help until she meets Wolf. Wolf claims he is from a coven that practices dark magic, making him one of the only people who can help her. But he refuses to let Tana's power rush into the sea and instead teaches her his forbidden magic. A magic that makes her feel powerful, alive. As the sea grows more violent, her coven loses control of the currents, a danger that could destroy the alliance as well as her island. Tana will have to choose between love and duty, between loyalty to her people and loyalty to her heart. Marrying Landon would secure peace for her coven, but losing Wolf and his wild magic could cost her everything else. From the New York Times best-selling author of The Nature of Witches and Wild as a Witch comes a lush romantic fantasy about forbidden love, the choices we make, and the pull between duty and desire. Very excited for that. I love everything she writes. Okay, next up I have these paperback editions of Pestilence, War, and Famine. So let me just read the first one, which is Pestilence. This is the Four Horsemen series. This says, they came to Earth, pestilence, war, famine, death. 4 horsemen riding their screaming steeds, racing to the corners of the world. 4 horsemen with the power to destroy all of humanity. They came to Earth and they came to end us all. When Pestilence, the first of the horsemen, comes for Sarah Burns's town, one thing is certain. Everyone she knows and loves is marked for death. Unless, of course, the angelic-looking horseman is stopped. Which is exactly what Sarah has in mind when she shoots the unholy beast off his steed. Too bad no one told her Pestilence can't be killed. Alive and furious, the horseman takes Sarah prisoner, determined to make her suffer for impeding his mission. Despite her pleas, nothing and no one gets in the way of his orders to destroy humankind. Only the longer Pestilence spends beside Sarah's bravery and compassion, the more he seems to understand her and humanity. And the longer Sarah travels with Pestilence and his plague, the more uncertain she grows about his true feelings toward her and hers toward him. Sarah might still be able to save the world, but she'll have to sacrifice her heart in the process. And I've heard very mixed things about these since getting them, so I'm like, oh, I'm not sure. Hopefully I like them, but I am a little worried. Next up, I have The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. And this says, sometimes the darkest secrets lurk in broad daylight. Mars has always been the lesser twin, the shadow to his sister Caroline's radiance. But when Caroline dies under horrific circumstances, Mars is propelled to learn all that he can about his once inseparable sister, who'd grown tragically distant. Mars's gender fluidity means he's often excluded from the traditions and expectations of his politically connected family. This includes attendance at the prestigious Aspen Conservancy Summer Academy, where his sister poured so much of her time. But with his grief still fresh, he insists on attending in her place. What Mars finds is a bucolic fairy tale not meant for him. Folksy charm and sun-drenched festivities, camouflage old-fashioned gender roles, and a toxic preparatory rigor. Morris seeks out his sister's old friends, a group of girls dubbed the Honeys, named for the beehives they maintained behind their cabin. They are beautiful and terrifying, and Mars is certain they're connected to Caroline's death. But the longer he stays at Aspen, the more the sweet mountain breezes give way to hints of decay. Mars's memories begin to falter, bleached beneath the relentless summer sun. Something is hunting him in broad daylight, toying with his mind. If Mars can't find it soon, it will eat him alive. Next is New Adult by Timothy Janofsky. And this says, why can't we skip to the good part? Nolan Baker wants it all by the time he's 30. Too bad he's single, barely able to cover his own expenses, and still paying his dues at a prominent NYC comedy club. When faced with his perfect sister's wedding, Nolan takes it as a wake-up call. It's time to quit comedy and ask Drew Teckler, his best friend, to be his date. But right as Nolan is about to give it all up, he's asked to fill a last-minute spot for a famous comedian. Score. He crushes his set, but stands Drew up, misses his sister's big day, and disappoints his entire family. Ew. After major blowouts with everyone he loves, Nolan desperately wishes on a set of magical healing crystals to skip to the good part of life. When he wakes the next morning, it's 7 years later, and he has everything he always wanted. Everything, that is, except his friends and family. With nowhere else to turn, Nolan sets out to find the only person he trusts to help, except Drew is all grown up now, too. He's hot, successful, and hates Nolan's guts. As Nolan works to get back to the life he so carelessly threw away, he'll have to prove he's not the man everyone thinks they know in order to regain Drew's trust, friendship, and maybe ultimately his heart. I think this is going to be a very fun read. Okay, next is a sequel. This is House of Roots and Ruin by Aaron A. Craig, and this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, and it has these pretty sprayed edges. The end pages look like so. So this is the sequel to House of Salt and Sorrows, and I have that pulled up here on Goodreads to tell you about. In a manor by the sea, 12 sisters are cursed. Annalee lives a sheltered life at Highmore, a manor by the sea with her sisters, her father, and stepmother. Once there were 12, but loneliness fills the grand halls now that 4 of the girls' lives have been cut short. Each death was more tragic than the last. The plague, a plummeting fall, a drowning, a slippery plunge, and there are whispers throughout the surrounding villages that the family is cursed by the gods. Disturbed by a series of ghostly visions, Annalee becomes increasingly suspicious that the deaths were no accidents. Her sisters have been sneaking out every night to attend glittering balls, dancing until dawn in silk gowns and shimmering slippers, and Annalee isn't sure whether to try to stop them or to join their forbidden trysts. Because who or what are they really dancing with? When Annalee's involvement with a mysterious stranger who has secrets of his own intensifies, it's a race to unravel darkness that has fallen over her family before it claims her next. And that's a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, which I have read and enjoyed, so I'm excited to read these. Y'all know I love me a good retelling. Okay, next up is A Soul of Ash and Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. And this is book 5, I believe, in the From Blood and Ash series. So I've pulled that up on Goodreads to tell you. That one says, a maiden, chosen from birth to usher in a new era, Poppy's life has never been her own. The life of the maiden is solitary, never to be touched, never to be looked upon, never to be spoken to, never to experience pleasure. Waiting for the day of her ascension, she would rather be with the guards, fighting back the evil that took her family, than preparing to be found worthy by the gods. But the choice has never been hers. A duty. The entire kingdom's future rests on Poppy's shoulders, something she's not even quite sure she wants for herself. Because a maiden has a heart and a soul and longing, and when Hawk, a golden-eyed guard, honor-bound to ensure her ascension, enters her life, destiny and duty become tangled with desire and need. He incites her anger, makes her question everything she believes in, and tempts her with the forbidden, a kingdom. Forsaken by the gods and feared by mortals, a fallen kingdom is rising once more, determined to take back what they believe is theirs through violence and vengeance. And as the shadow of those curse draws closer, the line between what is forbidden and what is right becomes blurred. Poppy is not only on the verge of losing her heart and being found unworthy by the gods, but also her life when every blood-soaked thread that holds her world together begins to unravel. And I don't know how those all fit before, but they don't seem to want to fit now. Okay, let me pull these down. Okay, next up is a manga. And y'all know I don't do a whole lot of mangas. I've only read 2, and of those 2, I read a Wonderland one that was really dark and twisted. Didn't like it. And then I read one called Fairy Tale. I thought it was based on fairy tales, but it's not. But I did end up liking that one. So when I saw this one, I decided to give him one more chance. This one is also a Wonderland one, but it is by Disney. So maybe it'll work a little bit more like what I would be wanting to read. This is Twisted Wonderland, the manga, Book of Heartslobule. And it looks really cool. I'm excited to give it a shot. This says, stranded in the world of Twisted Wonderland, you, this is his name, must brave a magical school filled with ghosts, monsters, and uncooperative students. You is whisked away to Night Raven College, an arcane academy in the world of Twisted Wonderland. Stranded until he can find a way home, you is allowed to stay on campus despite having no magic of his own. But when his new friends land him in trouble with the head mage, his future at the school looks bleak. Now Yu's fate hinges on bringing together a pair of argumentative first years and a fire-breathing monster cat. Next up is The House Guest by Hank Philippi Ryan. And this one says, Alyssa McCollin has been dumped by her wealthy and manipulative husband, and now she's terrified that her toxic soon-to-be ex is scheming to ruin her, leaving her penniless and alone. Just when Alyssa could really use an ally, she makes one, a seductive new friend who's running from a dangerous relationship of her own. Alyssa offers Bree Lawrence the safety of her guest house, and the two become confidants. Then Bree makes a tempting offer. Maybe they can solve each other's problems. But no one is who they seem, and the fates and fortunes of these two determined women twist and turn until the shocking truth emerges. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you deserve. Next up is the paperback edition, Barnes & Noble exclusive edition of Belladon by Adeline Grace, and it has these beautiful sprayed edges. This says, for as long as Signa Faro has been alive, the people in her life have fallen like stars. Orphaned as a baby, 19-year-old Signa has been raised by a string of guardians, each more interested in her wealth than her well-being, and each has met an untimely end. Her remaining relatives are the elusive Hawthorns, an eccentric family living at Thorn Grove, an estate both glittering and gloomy. Its patriarch mourns his late wife through wild parties while his son grapples for control of the family's waning reputation, and his daughter suffers from a mysterious illness. But when their mother's restless spirit appears claiming she was poisoned, Signa realizes that the family she depends on could be in grave danger, and enlists the help of a surly stable boy to hunt down the killer. However, Signa's best chance of uncovering the murderer is an alliance with Death himself, a fascinating, dangerous shadow who has never been far from her side. Though he's made her life a living hell, Death shows Signa that their growing connection may be more powerful and more irresistible than she ever dared imagine. From New York Times bestselling author Adeline Grace, Belladonna brings to life a highly romantic, gothic-infused world of wealth, desire, and betrayal. Okay, next up is Fall of Ruin and Wrath by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. This is the beginning of yet another series by this woman. This is what the end pages look like. Book. This one says, long ago, the world was destroyed by gods. Only 9 cities were spared, separated by vast wilderness teeming with monsters and unimaginable dangers. Each city is now ruled by a guardian, a loyal who feeds on mortal pleasure. Born with an intuition that never fails, Callista knows her talents are of great value to the power-hungry of the world. So she lives hidden as a courtesan of the Baron of Archwood. In exchange for his protection, she grants him information. When her intuition leads her to save a traveling prince in dire trouble, the voice inside her blazes with warning and promise. Today he'll bring her joy. One day he'll bring her doom. When the Baron takes an interest in the traveling prince and the prince takes an interest in Callista, she becomes the prince's temporary companion. But the city shimmers with rebellion, and with knights and monsters at her city gates and a hungry prince in her bed, intuition may not be enough to keep her safe. Callista must choose, follow her intuition to safety or follow her heart to her downfall. On the back here it says, she lives by her intuition. He feeds on her pleasure. This one's going to be fun. Okay, next up is another Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. This is The Long Game by Alina Armas. This one says, can you be on opposing sides of the same team? Adeline Reyes has spent years perfecting her daily routine. Wake up at dawn, drive to the Miami Flames FC offices, try her hardest, go home, and repeat. But her routine is disrupted when a video of her having an altercation with the team's mascot goes viral. Rather than fire her, the team's owner, who happens to be her father, sends Adeline to middle of nowhere, North Carolina, where she's tasked with turning around the struggling local soccer team. Her plans crumble upon discovering that the players wear tutus to practice, impractical, keep pet goats messy, and are terrified of Adeline, counterproductive. They're also 9-year-old girls. To make things worse, also in town is Cameron Caladani, recently retired professional goalkeeper whose presence is something of a mystery. Cam is the perfect candidate to help Adeline, except after one very unfortunate first encounter involving a rooster, Cam's leg, and Adeline's car bumper, he's set on running her out of town. But helping this ragtag children's team is Adeline's road to redemption, and she is playing the long game, with or without Cam's help. Next up is a book that I'm really, really interested in, and I was so shocked by how short this book is, especially for the price, because it's a $20 book, but this $20 book is, hold on, not including acknowledgments. Wow, why are words so hard right now? This book is only 111 pages. That is Thorn Hedge by T. Kingfisher. Like, look how small. Gosh, it's so small. The inside looks like this. The outside looks like that. This says, there's a princess trapped in a tower. This isn't her story. Meet Toadling. On the day of her birth, she was stolen from her family by the fairies, but she grew up safe and loved in the warm waters of fairyland. Once an adult, though, the Fae asked a favor of Toadling, returning to the human world and offering a blessing of protection to a newborn child. Simple, right? But nothing with fairies is ever simple. Centuries later, a knight approaches a towering wall of brambles, where the thorns are as thick as your arm and as sharp as swords. He's heard there's a curse here that needs breaking, but it's a curse Toadling will do anything to uphold. I'm very, very interested. Next up is The Book of Silver Linings by Nan Fisher. This one says, within an ancient book, a timeless love awaits for a young woman on the precipice of a terrible mistake in this enthralling exploration of fate and independence. Constance Sparks always says yes. When her capricious best friend needs money, when her boss gives her more responsibility without a raise, and when her boyfriend Hayden, who is very kind but also secretive, asks her to marry him. While planning their wedding and struggling with anxiety about the right course of her future, Constance researches the history of her antique engagement ring and unearths the name of a man who might be connected to it, plus his tragic love story. When she finds a book of letters in her library's old manuscript section written by the long-dead man, Constance is deeply touched by his words and leaves a note for him confessing her uncertainty and doubts. She's shocked days later to find a response tucked among the pages. As the notes continue to arrive, Constance finds herself quickly falling in love with a ghost and putting her real-life relationship in jeopardy. Will a bond based on letters impossibly sent from the past derail her, or will Constance discover her voice and risk everything for the chance to somehow connect with her true soulmate? Next up is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. And, this one also has these red sprayed edges. This one says, Assistant wanted. Notorious high-ranking villain seeks loyal, level-headed assistant for unspecified office duties, supporting staff for random mayhem and terror and other dark things in general. Discretion is a must. Excellent benefits. With ailing family to support, Evie Sage's employment status isn't just important, it's vital. So when a mishap with Renidon's most infamous villain results in a job offer, naturally, she says yes. No job is perfect, of course, but even less so when you develop a teeny crush on your terrifying, temperamental, and unbelievably hot boss. Don't find evil so attractive, Evie. But just when she's getting used to severed heads suspended from the ceiling and the odd squish of the errant eyeball beneath her heel, Evie suspects this dungeon has a huge rat. And it's not just the literal kind, because something rotten is growing in the kingdom of Renidon, and someone wants to take the villain and his entire nefarious empire out. Now Evie must not only resist drooling over her boss, but also figure out exactly who is sabotaging his work, and ensure he makes them pay. After all, a good job is hard to find. And this sounds very cute. Next up is Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim. This one says, Cheney was not born a monster, but when her own father offers her in sacrifice to the demon witch, she is forever changed. Cursed with a serpent's face, Chani is the exact opposite of her beautiful sister Vanna, the only person in the village who looks at Chani and doesn't see a monster, the only person she loves and trusts. Now 17, Vanna is to be married off in a vulgar contest that will enrich the coffers of the village leaders. Only Chani, who has had to rely on her strength and cunning all these years, can defend her sister against the cruelest of the suitors. But in doing so, she becomes the target of his wrath, launching a grisly battle royale, a quest over land and sea, a romance between sworn enemies, and a choice that will strain Chani's heart to its breaking point. Interweaving elements of Helen of Troy with Asian folklore, Elizabeth Lim is at the absolute top of her game in this thrilling yet heart-wrenching fantasy that explores the dark side of beauty and the deepest bonds of sisterhood. I love Elizabeth Lim's writing too. Okay, next up is The Brothers Hawthorne Barnes & Noble exclusive edition by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is sort of a spin-off series to the Inheritance games. And looks like that. This one says, 4 brothers, 2 missions, 1 explosive read. Grayson Hawthorne was raised as the heir apparent to his billionaire grandfather, taught from the cradle to put his family first. Now the great Tobias Hawthorne is dead and his family disinherited, but some lessons linger. When Grayson's half-sisters find themselves in trouble, he swoops in to do what he does best, take care of the problem. Efficiently, effectively, mercilessly, and without getting bogged down in emotional entanglements. Jameson Hawthorne is a risk-taker, a sensation-seeker, a player of games. When his mysterious father appears and asks for a favor, Jameson can't resist the challenge. He must infiltrate London's most exclusive underground gambling club, which caters to the rich and the powerful and the aristocratic, and win an impossible game of greatest stakes. Luckily, Jameson Hawthorne lives for the impossible. Drawn into twisted games on opposite sides of the globe, Grayson and Jameson, with the help of their brothers and the girl who inherited their grandfather's fortune, must dig deep to decide who they want to be and what each of them will sacrifice to win. I'm excited to read this too. Okay, and then the last book I have here is The Forest Grimm by Catherine Purdy. This one says, Tell me again, Grandmere, the story of how I die. The Midnight Forest. The Fanged Creature. 2 cards that spell an untimely death for 17-year-old Clara. Despite the warning from her fortune teller grandmother, Clara and her close friend Axel, who is fated never to be in love with her, embark on a dangerous journey into the deadly Forest Grim. Even though every time someone crosses the forest border, they don't return. Clara and Axel have no choice. Entering the forest is the only way they can find the magical Sortis Fortuna, the Book of Fortunes, with the power to reverse the curse on their village and save Clara's mother. But the forest is alive with dark, deadly twists on some of our most well-known fairy tales, and it has a mind of its own. Very excited. Ooh, love it. Okay, so those plus these 6 are all 28 books that I accumulated since my last haul. Have you guys read any of them? Did you like them? Did you not? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!